evening, everyone, and thank you all for being here. And please join me in thanking our very distinguished panelists over here. So thank you all for taking the time out. This is, of course, a very interesting topic, the secret to brands CX. So we're going to find out a lot of industry secrets on how brands need to win with today's changing consumer. Should be very, very exciting and useful for all of us. I'm going to start straight, Rishi. The demands of today's consumer. Tell us about today's consumer, what's changed, what are some of the implications for brands?
Yeah, the last 3-4 years have been very interesting. The access to consumers and the access of consumers to brands has really gone up. The adoption of online is one big change that has happened during these 2 years of COVID. And because of that, there was an unmet need where different consumers were making do with the similar brands. And now every household, whether you see your wife and your daughter, everyone has very, very different choices. And that's becoming possible because of this whole democratization of distribution. And I think that's the big change. The other big change is the whole advent of influencer-driven purchase. No longer are people happy with large hoardings, large campaigns of big celebrities who move on from brand to brand. They are looking for more niches. They're looking for the influencers of their choice, telling them how to consume things, what to consume. So I think availability and also availability of information and products has massively changed in the last 3-4 years, which is seeing this whole boom of D2C brands and new segments emerging, new niches emerging. So very exciting time. And for large brands also the time to really think of how to be more core to their core customers. Otherwise, just being average to a large base of customers is not going to be good enough.
Thank you. And, it's a very interesting point around, you're saying the democratization of information and access to some extent. Have consumers' demands changed over time, or is it just these were latent demands and now there are new models to tap into these demands versus, which didn't exist earlier?
No, definitely consumers' demands have changed. So one is the demand of service has gone up. Like back in my days in Flipkart, the NPS for fashion categories would not drop till 4 days. But now we are trying to do delivery within the same day, even for fashion articles. Nobody is ready to wait for 4 days. So customers will always become demanding as they experience new experiences and new levels of service. That's one. But the number of categories that consumers are consuming now has really gone up. Like as they find more and more brands talking to them and more niches emerging, people are looking at more occasions to purchase. And therefore, the number of categories that they're buying into, also during COVID, a lot of new categories have emerged, which earlier people would not. Wellness, for example, is one big space. So therefore, people are looking at more categories, more products, and better levels of service. So yes, they are. There's more demand as well as they are becoming more demanding.
Thank you. Pooja, your thoughts on the changing consumer and how you're seeing it in your industry, but also around you?
Oh, for us, the industry is absolutely different. Considering lingerie, where it's no more about innerwear. What I mean is that gone are the days when women would just talk about black, white, and beige bra. Now there is a different bra for a different outfit. You literally have a bra wardrobe. That's what I'm talking about. And thanks to more awareness, higher spending power, this change has happened. But also what happened is that one of the things that women don't shy away anymore is to talk about lingerie. We are open to talk about band sizes. We're open to talk about cup sizes. This whole stigma related to discussing lingerie and being hush-hush is slowly diminishing, and which has really brought about that big change in the consumer. And of course, not to mention the post-COVID, what happened was that who knew that you could literally buy bras online? I mean, considering that it's a size-driven game, where you just don't have 4 or 5 sizes of small, medium, large, XL. We have 20 sizes. And, for a customer to buy the right size, because bras are all about the right fit, right size, to buy that online was a big change for us, yeah.
Very interesting. And I think as I reflect, if you look at, it seems like every category can go online. So, if I look back 5 years or 7 years, and you think about makeup as a category where everything was about visiting the store, trying on the shade, you'd have argued then that hey, this category is going to be difficult to become large online. It's, I think, 35% online now. So, and I guess you're seeing a similar thing.
Absolutely. You know, who knew that, you know, like considering when you spoke about the sizes, we have 20 sizes. Now you can actually get yourself, forget going to the store and getting yourself fitted, you can actually get your right size if you visit my website. You just have to put in some details and in few seconds, there it is, you know, whether you're a 32B or a 34D, and you know, you can buy it online. So why not?
Got it. And obviously this shift then, today's consumer, and you know, I think Rishi and Pooja have spoken about some of the changes. It's obviously got massive implications for brands and brand marketing in particular, right? And I'm going to, maybe would love to start with Priyanka on this one. Obviously, the rules of marketing, if you will, or the marketing models in terms of, you know, there's so many new vehicles now, right? There's content into commerce, there's omni-channel, there's influencer-led marketing, and so on. So would love to hear your perspectives on how you see, you know, communication to consumers change with the consumer of today versus, let's say, more traditional methods 5 years ago?
Yeah, you know, we see it changing drastically, right? And I think let's go back to the points that Pooja or Rishi mentioned, right? Today's consumer, if we see, is becoming, in terms of their product choices, much more demanding, much more product savvy versus price savvy, right? Which means they want to know what is the product, what goes inside the product. They want brands to be more transparent, right? And I think that's where, if they want certain things from the brands need to deliver that, right? Which means we need to, for example, in communication, what we do at the sleep company, we realized our consumers literally research for 2 to 3 weeks before they decide what mattress do they want to purchase. I mean, few years back, did anybody know the brand they were sleeping on? I don't think any one of us ever thought what we were sleeping on. That's changing, right? And that means you cannot just have a 30-second TV communication playing on, right? That means you need to have long format videos because your consumers want to know everything that goes inside your product. That's first thing, right? Second thing, the channels, right? I think the gap between the channels is becoming very, very intangible. For example, today, you know, a lot of us hear about terms like omni, right? And why is that happening? Because today's consumer is very demanding and want the experience to be as seamless as possible, right? So for example, you know, I might discover you online, but now I want to touch and feel you, right? So do you have a store near my house, right? Doesn't matter where I shop. I could shop online, I could pay offline, but the experience needs to be very, very seamless. And I think the funnel no longer is like drive awareness, drive consideration, drive purchase, right? You have to be driving everything at every point wherever your consumer is, right? So I think that's what we do at the sleep company. We are just 3 years old, and you know, we realized 80% of our consumers are offline and they want to touch and feel. Obviously, digital gave us a great platform to, you know, make the products available, do product market fit, right? But I think from what I tell everybody is, whatever your consumer wants, and this is a continuous evolution, the communication you do to the consumers, the channels you play in, and I think that's what is evolving.
And do you see a lot more content-driven marketing versus brand messaging marketing, or no, not so much?
No, absolutely. I'll give you an example. I spent a decade at P&G, right? Procter & Gamble, and the only thing, the 95% of our budgets were on a 30-second or a 20-second TVC. It's completely opposite today, right? I mean, consumers don't care about just the brand ambassador coming and talking in 30 seconds about the brand, right? They want to know about the brand. So we do, for example, today, influencer marketing plays a very big role, right? Influencer or experts, you need to see what your category is and what works for your category, right? For us, sleep experts play a big role. For us, tech bloggers play a big role, right? So you need to see who are the right influencers for your category. So absolutely, that makes a huge difference, right? Second is, we don't do 30 seconds. For us, we literally do YouTube videos of 6 minutes, 7 minutes, right? So that we can communicate about our products, which is what customers want to know, right? So the choices of media, the choices of the kind of content you do has completely changed. And I think it will continue to evolve. So for example, today, you know, we talk a lot about voice commerce, right? We talk a lot about video commerce, right? So I think all these things will continue to evolve, and brands or startups, they have to make sure that you stay closer to your consumer and do, I think, what will delight your consumers, right?
That's very interesting, and I think P&G and what Nestle here, Amex, Unilever. So the old marketing playbook, of course,
Versus the new one.
versus the new one, which also these companies, I think, are absolutely, making a run to adopt. Amit, your perspectives?
So I think that a few trends have actually manifested themselves post-COVID. One is that the digital adoption has gone up. And second, there is now a much more healthier balance between offline and online compared to the earlier days where it was for each consumer skewed towards one way or the other. Right? What therefore it means is that if the consumer has actually adopted to this style of living, the marketers will also have to do the same. What I mean by this is that perhaps earlier, for marketing, there was mostly a linear approach to marketing in the sense that for offline, we'd look at initiatives which are offline focused. And for digital marketing, we'd look at businesses or brands which were digital focused. Given that the balance is more towards midway now, we'll also have to look at a much more matrix-driven approach. We'll have to be focused on how can digital actually influence offline behavior. In the sense, if I were to give you an example, if you were to walk in today to a La Marche store, you'd see a lot of digital signages up which are able to communicate with the consumer about the aspects of the brand, right? That's what catches the attention because no longer are people more and more interested in indulging with the sales execs on the ground given the fears of COVID. We need to back it up with much more information through QR codes which could be scanned and more details about the product can be taken online, be it the nutrient information or the kind of causes that the brand stands for, which is an important aspect for Gen Z as they shop. And then, you could also place the same product for sampling so that it's a complete holistic experience when one is actually making that choice. Similarly, we'll also have to look at, this has also been brought about by the fact that, people are more and more willing to adopt to digital as a means of communication as well, even though it happens to be in-store, right? Similarly, people who are actually shopping online, how do we actually give them the offline experience? Because otherwise, it'll just be a digital game and we'll not be able to get the transaction efficiencies that each business needs. I'll give you a simple example, right? Speaking in terms of grocery retail, any one of us actually orders fruits or vegetables online versus the experience of buying it offline. You'd need that touch and feel of the product, right? Online, nobody today is even capturing the need state of ordering a banana or an avocado, whether somebody needs it ripe or unripe or overripe, right? But if you walk into the store, those are aspects that you take care of yourself, right? How are we actually then able to capture the need state of that consumer online and then able to transition that to the offline experience by ensuring that the same kind of product is then delivered so that the benefits of offline are also given to the digital consumer. That to me is the complete phygital story when one channel is actually feeding off the other.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. No, I'll just add and absolutely agree with Amit. And I'll tell you two things that we've learned big way in this Omni or Physitech journey, right? Today in our stores, 70% of the consumers who come to our stores, they have discovered the sleep company online. They've not discovered us because we have an offline store, they came online. They're comfortable now purchasing offline. However, they still want an experience to be very seamless. Nobody should call me. My product should get delivered to me in 48 hours. I should get each confirmation. For example, I got a WhatsApp on order confirmation. I got a WhatsApp, your package has been dispatched. I got a WhatsApp that it's out for delivery. So the customer, so you have to make sure that the customer experience doesn't matter where they are, is exactly same, is exactly similar, so that you delight the customers, and when they walk to the stores, how the brands can really know where they're coming from, right? What was the source of awareness for that customer when they enter this? So the journey, don't break the touch points, right? Think of it to be one kind of a system which captures everything what the consumer journey has been and keep that very, very seamless. And I think that's what a lot of brands have started to do today. As Amit also said that, as the balance between online, offline comes, it's not just online D2C brands, right? It's D2C, doesn't matter you're offline or online.
So I'll just complete the point and, building on what you said, this is an example which I give everywhere that I go to. Now, La Marche is a grocery brand, right? We sell grocery, 20 to 25,000 SKUs of grocery at any point in time. If anyone could hazard a guess in terms of an Indian grocery brand, what would be the highest selling SKU, right? If I were to ask this question, mostly people would talk of either fruits and vegetables or think of milk, water, etc. The largest selling SKU for La Marche for the last 3 years running is actually guacamole, right? For people who might not be aware, it's a dip made out of avocado. Now, how have we been able to actually sell it? Because we are not selling guacamole as a product, but as a service. You come to our stores, you pick up the guacamole, you pick up the avocado, it's converted to guacamole as per your taste for free, right? So for an Indian consumer to know that, this is a product, this has to be eaten in a particular manner, and it can be customized to my taste buds, that is what does the trick, because Indians are curious, Indians are willing to pay, but very, very hesitant to ask. So we'll have to do the product talking ourselves and make them aware about how to actually have that product and what are the benefits of that product for that to succeed. Just to conclude the point, because I was talking about a matrix approach, we'll also have to be sharper as far as our offline for offline and digital for digital offerings are also concerned. Purely one example, wherein we've done this with sharper merchandising. One of the trends which has emerged in the recent past is actually this concept about alternate proteins or mock meats, right? The simple change that we've done to our stores is that we've had extensive conversations with the brand and tried to understand what's their TG, right? A couple of brands came to us and were very, very clear that their TG for mock meats is the heavy non-veg eating public, right? Because, on days when guilt comes in or there are religious aspects, they did not want to have those and perhaps would want to switch to that. We all could have, let's say, our own views about that strategy, but if that's the strategy of the brand, how do we as a retailer bring that to life? By simply placing that product, even though it's a vegetarian product, in the non-veg section, right? And also offering free samples to people who are heavy non-veg eaters or have heavy penetration of non-veg buying in that bill. And from a digital to digital aspect, I completely agree with the point on content commerce. It's just that the shorter the video is and the more effective the communication is, that's how we'd be able to get that transaction going for the consumer, because that's how the intrigue will be solved.
Very interesting. So 7-minute videos on sleep, I assume that's awareness, and you're talking a little bit more consideration stroke performance in terms of the more bite-sized content and...
Depends on where the content is getting consumed, right? If it's getting consumed in the store or in an offline store, right, we can't have 7-minute videos, because then, the consumer will not be waiting there and seeing that video. But if it's online and if the content is engaging enough, why not? However, that would still be much more relevant for categories which are far more engaged than grocery. Grocery, I think if you're able to catch the attention in about 10 seconds, that should do the trick.
Yeah, very interesting. And, for someone who does it, has done it earlier and now has to do it with a staple of brands, of D2C brands, in your perspective, Rishi, how are the rules or how are the models of marketing changing? Content, influencer, two-way, omni-channel, some of these things. Would love to hear your perspectives on that.
Yeah, our company actually deals with the whole stable of brands. We have 15 as of now. And since they operate in different categories, every category has their own nuances, and therefore you need to have a whole repertoire of things that you pull out. And also given the distribution. So for example, you cannot go mass media if your brand is not hugely distributed, and therefore digital works because then you can target your audience. But one thing that really works in the fashion brands, and I can talk a little more about that, is that it's a very impulse-driven category. It's a browse category. People constantly are on Instagram looking for what looks nice on certain influencer or certain celebrity, and that's where suddenly the magic happens and they want to buy it, the urge is there and they want to buy it right then and there. So therefore what you communicate, you are communicating all the time. So therefore it's not about, like I mentioned earlier, your clothes have to communicate, who is wearing your clothes have to communicate the same thing. In fact, recently one of the founders of one of our brands was talking about that when she gives out the clothes to the model, she really talks about what that brand stands for, hoping that when she poses in those clothes, she brings out what the brand stands for. It might seem very subtle, it might seem but what she's trying to do is ensure that it's a model not wearing just another brand, right? So therefore, because you have to be very authentic in your communication, and it is almost like a brand is always talking to you, it's always on. Whenever you go to the website, in traditional offline stores, you would design collections for 2-3 months, put it out there, because the customer would come in probably in a fast fashion brand, probably once every couple of weeks, in a men's brand, probably once in 2-3 months. But here you have to have new launches all the time because consumers are going to your website all the time. And therefore, if you're selling the same thing, so what I mean to say is that marketing now involves everything that you do. And a lot of the D2C brands also take the effort of packaging the goods themselves with a small note from the founder. It all adds up because you are telling a story and consumer wants that story to be told. So everything is marketing. All touch points of the consumer is marketing. What your brand stands for is marketing. And therefore, I cannot imagine a D2C brand saying, I have a marketing department, right? So everything is marketing.
Everyone's in the
because you
marketing
are-
department.
Yeah.
Basically, everyone's in the marketing department.
Everyone's marketing department. So including the guys who are delivering, because that's part of the promise, like Pooja was saying, that, if they want delivery in 2 days, they want delivery in 2 days. Everything might be perfect, but if you kind of don't deliver as per the timeline, then, the product, the brand is not loved by them or the promise is broken. So yeah, it's kind of an integrated marketing approach where everything that you're doing all the time has to, and therefore everybody in the company, including all the ecosystem of influencers, models, partners, etc., need to be aware of what that brand stands for and deliver it to the consumers because the consumers are sensing what's wrong with that company. And like we were listening a little bit to the previous session, and then it starts to appear in your reviews and people quickly call out that this is not authentic or this is not really the brand should be doing, right? People have strong opinions.
Thank you. And we were chatting briefly about this earlier. The clock speed in marketing also seems to have changed a bit, right? In terms of everything is now like daily, weekly. It's less about, you were talking about innovation. The consumer wants something new every day. So it really feels like beyond the fact that everyone's now in the marketing department, that the marketing team has to do almost like a daily thing. It's not about a monthly or a quarterly or an annual game anymore. It's daily. Is that a fair? I would love to get your thoughts, especially given the staple of brands and the fact that they're all D2C, if you're seeing that pan out.
Yeah, so when we came up with this whole model, and a lot of people confuse this with the aggregator model of the West, where they acquire 100% of the company. When we started this and I thought of how the whole thing would work out, it was very clear that the center of each brand has to be the founder, right? So because with D2C brands, there is that much more information that you are getting all the time. Where is it that customers spending more time? What are they clicking? What are they leaving on the cart? What are they talking about your brand? And therefore, if you need to innovate, if you need to constantly be changing, like you said, while there'll be big threads on product innovation or design innovation or your service innovation, which takes slightly longer time, but the speed at which you capture the information and make those changes to your brand has to be very high. And therefore, it's almost like till the brand becomes 500-700 crores, you still need the founders who are like the mothers who really understand even a small noise and they know what the baby wants. So it's almost akin to taking the mother away from the baby and say, I'll groom him to be a great guy. So brands are like that. So therefore, there is constantly evolution happening. And that's what this innovation is. But it's actually you are fine-tuning the proposition, you are listening to the customers, you are constantly evolving, and consumers are fine with that because they want to be part of this evolution.
Thank you. And I'm just going to build off that. Clearly, there's a lot of signals we're getting almost in real time, and there's a lot of data, right? So maybe Pooja, I'll start with you on this one. How's data redefining the game from a analytics perspective, innovation perspective, targeting perspective, and would love to hear your perspectives on that.
Well, leveraging on the multiple channels actually helps us to connect with the customer at multiple touch points, of course. And for us, considering a very sensitive innerwear category, lingerie, which we spoke about, which is highly size driven, we have bra experts in the stores who actually help you and guide you, because 90% of the women don't know their right bra size. They wear the wrong bra size. And once you walk into the store, the bra fit experts actually guide you that, ma'am, this is what will work for you. And it's just not about a 32B, if you're a 32B or a 34D. It's also about what looks the best on you, whether it's a 3/4 cup or a full cup. But then to convert that when she comes online is a big challenge for us. And for that, it becomes very important for us to tap where our surrogate customers are. For example, our price points being 2,500 plus, where my surrogate customer is, how do I tap into her, what she's buying, where she's buying, because lingerie, like we spoke about, the bra wardrobe, is not about innerwear anymore. It's all about how you're going to style it. And if she's buying the right brand, and if she's my right surrogate customer, and to tap her and offer her the right bra that will look the best on her with that outfit becomes the game changer for us.
Thank you. And from the world of retail, because I imagine you have access to a lot of direct data, first-party data. Amit, would love to get your thoughts on how you're able to leverage data. And I assume, again, this may be 2-3 lenses. One is perhaps innovation, maybe the guacamole thing. There was some data signal you guys picked up on. That could be one. Is there a way you remarket to your consumers? Is there a way you segment your consumers? Would love to hear your thoughts, specific to La Marche, but also more broadly in the industry.
So I think purely from a data standpoint, as since we are trying to merge the online and offline concept, I have had this firm belief for a while now that the industry has got the concept of omni-channel wrong, right? Because we've largely looked at it purely from a fulfillment standpoint, and the consumer doesn't really bother, right? It's largely the experience that will have to be seamless, which is what I briefly touched on earlier as well, in terms of the benefits of offline being transitioned to digital and vice versa. How do we actually look at data in the long term is what I'd like to focus on, because that's really the end state. As on today, yes, we have access to data. Yes, there could be some suggested products which could pop up when you visit our website or if you were to visit our store. But that's not really the ideal situation, right? The ideal situation would be if we are also able to capture the need states, right? Map it with the health benefits that the consumer is looking for, the causes that he stands for. If we are then able to map it back to the products and the need states that it is satiating, the benefits of the nutrients that it has, and also whether the product or the organization stands up for certain causes, right? If we are able to map this through NLP, which is been a constant endeavor for us, it's not working as far as grocery and the complexity of our SKUs is concerned. But if we are able to do it in the future, I think that would be the real ideal state. Imagine walking into a store and being told that, hey, you've been buying this, but given the needs that you have, these are the 3 additional products that we have which are placed on XYZ shelf, and the journey is then directed towards that. That, for me, is the perfect example of hyper-personalization using data, and that's the real end state that the industry at large should be aiming for. We've started working towards that. Secondly, from a digital standpoint, also to be able to use that data and build up AI-led models which are able to help us with the selection of the product, right? Now, if we capture the need state online, but we are then not able to map it offline in terms of what the consumer wants, right? That is also a difficult scenario, because we'll never be able to then meet the demands of the customer. We've started to build on AI models in terms of being able to identify the ripeness level or the taste or the quality of fruits and vegetables. Again, have we reached that stage wherein it can be exposed to the consumer? The answer is no. But that's really the journey that all brands should be willing to take.
Thank you. And a follow-up to that, we've, of course, seen, I think there's been plenty of data for a long time, and everyone talks about it, right? So, the number of times usage of data for analytics and innovation, et cetera, gets discussed is one. But if you look at organizations, actually, they tend to struggle a little in terms of piecing it together in a coherent manner, getting the teams to use it. Any advice on this journey? Because I think it does feel like a journey, because there are 100 use cases, right? Probably more. So any advice on that matter?
So one of the things that I've been thinking about and also facing it, as a retailer myself, the simple example is if we were to go back to cricket and the days when MS Dhoni was the captain, he was okay with the umpires on field making errors, but he wanted the DRS system to be 100% perfect before he actually allowed that, right? That itself is a commentary on us Indians, right? We are okay to forgive human behavior, but we are absolutely unforgiving as far as technology is concerned. So my advice to my teams as well as the partners that we work with and the industry at large is that expose the tech to the consumer once you are 100% sure that you will not invite a backlash, because that's the easiest bit, because again you are exposed to the technology online. It's very, very easy, and we had a session on reviews, etc. earlier as well. It's very easy for the consumer of today to be disappointed with the tech usage and then bash the brand online. So being able to actually have a robust tech architecture And secondly, also have a team which is trained well for adopting that technology is absolutely critical, because what I've realized again, with, let's say, some harsh realities of the last couple of years, that whilst the consumer evolved overnight, right, for the usage of tech, the teams cannot evolve overnight, right? And that is where the lag has always been, and the companies who are able to bridge that gap efficiently will be the ones who will come out winners in the long run.
Thank you. And I think the D2C brands, Rishi, would love your perspective. First-party data, how important is it? How good are the digital natives or D2C brands in using it? We do know that a lot of the organizations are trying but not able to do very much. So we'd love your perspectives on data overall and also first-party data and how critical it is for D2C brand scaling.
Yeah, so when you're selling through your own website, I think data is not a challenge because you are directly interacting with the customers. You have you have various sources of data. The important thing is organizing that data, right? A lot of people, and through my career, I've seen a lot of people focus on output metrics, right? They focus on sales kyun nahi hua, orders kyun kam hai. The important thing is really to build for each department the input metrics, and that's where a lot of teams go wrong, because for many teams, data means that sit with a bunch of data, download it into your Excel file and try to find some truth. But if there is clarity in the organization, what is the data that they're looking for, and therefore they have the input metrics sorted out, it becomes very easy for you to spot where things need to be changed or where things are going well and you need to double down on it. So for example, a lot of brands measure NPS. So one is to fret over NPS. The other is to really look at that as a starting point and then go down to, what has been your speed, what has been your perfect order delivery, and look at all the input metrics, product quality scores. So you have data from the delivery partners in terms of the customer satisfaction at the point of delivery. So if you have built this out in terms of a tree, and then you know what are the input metrics which actually impact your NPS, then you have a rigor that is built in. People know what data to look at and what actions to be taken. And as you expand into more and more areas, it's almost like the way retailers look at daily sales data and then look at, so that whole science is emerging as you look at different aspects of D2C. But to answer your question, there is a lot of data available now. You need to bring in the discipline, the organization, and bring in that culture of looking at the right input metrics to be able to impact the output metrics. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm conscious of time, and I do want to save a minute or two for audience questions. So I'm just going to request each of the panelists to maybe share some closing remarks. And none of them has answered the big question of what is their secret to brand CX. So maybe a little bit on the secret to brand CX and any advice you would have for marketeers. I'll start with you, Priyanka.
Yeah, I think just two things which I tell everybody. I think if you keep consumer at the epicenter of everything you do, right? Be it your product design, be it your communication, content, marketing, go to market, right? And evolve with that changing consumer, I think would lead to build long-term sustainable consumer brands. And that's what I think everybody, all of us, specifically in consumer brands should do, right? Put consumer in the middle.
We are fairly vocal with what works for us. Our mantra is that we need to bring the product experience to life. That's what we swear by. If the product can't talk to the consumer and convince the consumer, trust me, nobody else can. So what are the ways and means in which we can actually bring that experience in front of the consumers is what will drive success for businesses going forward.
Pooja?
For us, like Priyanka said, that we put the customer right in the center. One of the experiences that I want to share with everybody post-COVID, literally what happened was during COVID, there was work from home. Women literally stopped wearing bras. What do? People stopped dressing up. right? It was because of boredom. People didn't want to wear bras. Women just didn't want to wear bras. What happens to us as a brand? And that was one of the biggest problems that we faced. And what we did was we put the customer in the center, what she wants. She wants to feel comfortable and she wants to feel confident. And taking it from there, we build our brand, saying we as a brand are comfortable inside, confident inside. And that's what works for us.
Thank you. And Rishi?
Yeah, I think it's a time of extreme change. All the old models are up for review. So I would recommend to people of my age or similar age is that all the experiences that you may have had over many years, at least over the last couple of years, I have had to shed all of them and start all over again. And let me tell you, things are changing so fast that it's a complete new science emerging. And the more you get deeper into it, you realize that the consumer is changing fast, the technology is changing fast, and all of that means that everything that was like a gospel is up for review in terms of making your customers happy. So it's a good time to really go back to zero and learn and relearn all over again, which will ensure that your customers are with you for many years.
All the old models are up for review. That's an excellent, what a way to end the session. Thank you, everyone. Can I ask all of you to put your hands together for our distinguished panelists? And we have a couple of minutes for questions from the audience. Yeah. I think someone will get a mic over to her and then to this gentleman over here.
Yes. Hi, I'm Anisha. So, glad to have learned the stories from you guys. Just wanting to know how important were those first consumers for you, the first customers for you. I know you are a startup, you've now been working for a brand that has been very exceptionally done well outside India and has recently 4-5 years before has come to India. So just want to understand what is the number of customers you call your first customers and how important was it and how did you find those first customers? So primarily a question for you, Priyanka.
Yes, I would love to answer that. Very, very important, right? It's not just the fact that they're your first customers, so you're really, really emotional about it. But I think there's never a fixed number that these are my first set of customers. I think we continue to do that today, even after 3 years. You talk to your customers, you listen to your customers, and the first set of customers will teach you so many things because, you know, someone I think said I spent more than a decade in the corporate world, right? And when I started the sleep company, I was lost. I was lost that am I using the right digital touch points? Am I doing the right things, right? So you learn all that from your customers. I think in the first, literally, I'll give you an example. In the first 2 months of our launch, I personally went to deliver wherever I could deliver the products. I was taking all the calls from the customers to understand what they're talking, what do they need, right? We made more than 50 iterations in our product in the first 2 months of our launch. Right? And I think it's not just first time when you do something. I think you need to keep on doing that every day, every week, every month. You need to make sure, and that's what I think digital gives you access to, listening to your customers and having literally a two-way conversation so that you learn and you evolve from those learnings, right? Yeah.
Thank you.